Hey friends, Sean from SGTReport.com here with my good friend Rory, known as MRH over at SGTReport.com. MRH, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you so much.
If you're listening now, thanks for joining us. We have so much to cover today. Rory and I have prepped a very good show for you, and we want to talk about the silver and gold raid, which is absolutely 100% backfiring on the cartel. But first, I just want to talk about this unusual weather we've been having. Rory, what's it like down in your neck of the woods? Because this is the first nice day, actually I should take that back, the second nice day we've had in spring, yesterday being the first. Up to that point, it's been sleet and snow and hail and rain and gloominess for the entire months of March and April. How you doing, man?
I'm doing quite well, and all that snow and sleet and hail and stuff, you can have all that. I don't want any of it.
Oh, it's a nightmare. Some of us here think we're getting seasonal depression disorder or whatever that's called because, when you don't see the sun literally for 8 weeks, I don't know how people in Seattle do it.
I don't either. I couldn't do it. It's rainy and miserable here right now, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I don't know if you've heard about this, but my wife was telling me a couple of days ago that we are supposed to be in the middle of a 10-day full moon cycle that's never happened before. And, excuse me, I had never heard that. I hadn't heard anything about that except when she brought it up. I was curious if you'd heard anything about it.
No, I have not heard anything about it, but nothing would surprise me at this point in regards to our solar system, our sun, climate change, whatever you want to call it. It does appear that something strange is happening. I know others would attribute a lot of this to chemtrails and geoengineering, a topic for another day. All right, so we've got a great show today, and the thing is that as we hit this quickening and we see the cartel attack, and we see things change so quickly in the news environment, it's hard to keep up. And Rory, with your help, we've got some really important stories to cover. We have 4 minutes before we go to break. Let's start with this King World News article, Massive Run on Physical Gold and Silver at UBS and Scotiabank. Now, UBS, as you know, Rory, is in Switzerland. Yep. Scotiabank is up in Canada. It's the largest metals vault and really the only significant metals vault aside from the Royal Canadian Mint. Scotiabank. It is one of the globalist cabal, the cartel banks that help control and set the price of gold every single day. There's 6 banks, I believe, that are involved in that process. It used to be in the Rothschilds' domain. What you need to understand is that Scotiabank has a long history of alleged criminality. Harvey Organ and his son Lenny detailed purposefully their difficulty of getting their physical precious metals, which were allocated and stored at Scotiabank. At first, they weren't even allowed to visit those metals, see those metals, and they had a very difficult time getting a delivery of those metals back in 2009, 2010. It's all on the record. Just Google that, Harvey Organ, Scotiabank. So in this article, The Massive Run on Physical Gold and Silver at UBS and Scotia, Keith Barron quotes this. He says, "There's absolutely no question that this was an orchestrated takedown in gold and silver. We all know that ABM Ambro had gold missing. I believe it was out of allocated accounts, and they wanted to give people cash instead of returning gold bars to them." This appears to be a familiar theme. I'm going to turn it over to you, Rory. What are your thoughts?
It's no different than what happened in Cyprus. There was a decision made at the top, and they said, we're going to go in and we're going to take whatever it is that we want and leave you with nothing. And whether it's fiat in Cyprus or gold bars in Switzerland, it's no different. I mean, they're just taking whatever they want with no regard to anybody except for themselves. And I personally that this is pure speculation, but I believe that they had that gold is committed to somebody else, or it's not even there, which is probably the case. It's probably already in a vault in China.
Yeah, let's talk about that when we come back from break. We're going to go to break in about a minute and 10 seconds. But I think you hit the nail on the head, which is everybody now, whether you're a bullion bank, whether you're a central bank, whether you're the COMEX, the LBMA, the goal now is to settle everything in paper, everything in cash. If we can settle, we'll settle with you in cash. Otherwise, your metals may not be there. and probably aren't there. There's cases of allocated gold that are missing.
There's a lot going on in Switzerland that is being exposed right now, and how it's being exposed is by this physical run on a global scale.
You talked about this being the next Cyprus event, the way that they are going to absolutely gut the physical market. They're going to gut through paper the physical market so that nobody can take delivery or get their physical. And Jeff Nielsen, who I spoke to recently, was talking about Canada's Prime Minister Stephen Harper and how Harper has systematically weakened the Canadian banks and essentially prepped them for a Cyprus-like event in the near future. The bail-ins are in place so that these criminal banks can get taxpayer and government money if and when they should need it, and I should say when, not if. It's just a matter of time. And this is what Jeff Nielsen had to say. I thought it was very insightful.
From the moment Stephen Harper got into power, he has been relentlessly deregulating the banking industry and cranking up the leverage, along with, of course, his buddy Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of Canada. This has been pedal to the metal since these people got into power. Create a housing bubble, deregulate the financial industry, crank up the leverage. It would have been impossible to create any basis for, stealing money to give to Canadian banks even 5 years ago, because nothing could have made them need the money. But of course, now these scenario has been created. The intentional insolvency in this system has been created so that all it requires is detonation, and then we can have our own massive steal. And then, of course, what everybody who thinks the Canadian financial system is safe is going to find out is that, presto, we've got our own Ponzi scheme. Stephen Harper's been busy, and he's, followed the example of his American masters very closely.
He's followed the example of his American masters very closely. Your thoughts, Rory?
Well, the really what stuck out to me was when he said intentional insolvency. And it goes back to what Pastor Lindsey Williams said several years ago, that they will make us so poor that we will not be able to fight back, period. And that's exactly what's happening right now. It's to steal everything that's not nailed down, and if it is nailed down, get a bigger hammer and pull it up. So the intentional insolvency of these big banks, they're not broke. Bernanke and all these criminals around the world, they can print as much money as they want. They give it to their buddies, and it ties right back into the gold and silver being beat down the way that they have been, so that they can buy as much gold as they possibly can get their hands on at a much lower price.
That's right.
I mean, that's the way I feel about it anyway.
Absolutely. And for all of the shills out there who say and who have said there is no such thing as precious metals manipulation, eat this. Try this on for size. This was from Zero Hedge on Friday, and I quote, J.P. Morgan accounts for 99.3% of the COMEX gold sales over the last 3 months. So J.P. Morgan has fumbled ownership of 1.96 million ounces of gold since just February 1st of this year. That's 74% more gold, people, than the U.S. Mint delivered through the U.S. Mint's American Gold Eagle program in all of 2012. Yes. So you want to tell us that there's no such thing as manipulation? A direct arm of the Fed in the bond market, in all markets is J.P. Morgan and Jamie Dimon and the cronies over there. And that's the pinnacle of fascism, my friends, is when the corporatocracy, the corporations are in bed with the government. That's what's going on with J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Monsanto. That's what it is. It's called fascism. And J.P. Morgan is doing some shenanigans as it relates to the COMEX gold and the gold in their own vaults, which we can get to when we come back from break. 30 seconds, your thoughts on that?
Well, J.P. Morgan has the world's largest gold vault, and it just so happens to be on the other side of the wall, 5 stories below ground, on the other side of the wall of the Federal Reserve. How convenient.
You can't make this stuff up. You can't make it up. And you know what's funny, man? If you and I know this, we're just regular Joes. Now, before we went to break, Rory, you were talking about J.P. Morgan's gold vault and its proximity to the New York Fed vault 5 stories below the earth in New York City, which ties in specifically to this article. And I quote, JPM's gold vault in New York City is the largest gold vault in the world, located at 1 Chase Manhattan Plaza, Rockefeller, Chase Manhattan, directly adjacent to the New York Fed, 80 feet and 5 sublevels below ground. And it once held 2.5 million ounces of eligible, that's commercial gold, people, until recently, ... What's been happening recently that should give us all pause, Rory?
Well, the 1.96 million ounces that evaporated should certainly get everyone's attention, or that they sold, or whatever they did with it. And the other aspect of it is that the refineries now in Switzerland, which, according to Egon von Greyerz, 70% of the world's gold is refined in Switzerland. Those refineries are now running short of gold to process. There are some that are even, and this is according to Mr. Greyerz, 4 weeks in the arrears on producing gold. So you've got 1.96 million ounces, or 99.3% of all gold coming out of J.P. Morgan and no one else for the last 3 months. You've got refineries, the dominant refineries that can't get gold. You've got GLD that is leaking gold like nobody's business. Where's it all going?
Right.
First of all, where does it come from? And where is it going? Who is getting it? I mean, we'll just round it up and say 2 million ounces of gold have left J.P. Morgan.
Into whose pocket, right?
Somebody help me to understand where it's all at.
Yeah, where's the physical going? Because those who don't have it are going to be left with paper receipts that are worthless. You're going to be a unsecured creditor, which means you may as well just go through the bankruptcy process now trying to claim your money. You'd be lucky to get 10% of your money back. You probably get nothing. Now, when I spoke to Andy Hoffman most recently about the soaring demand for physical and the collapse of paper, he reminded me that the miners are absolutely being gutted and decimated. Well, who supplies the physical? The miners. When they drive the paper price of the metals down below the cost of production, as they have done, it destroys the miners. It destroys future supply of physical. Now, Rio Tinto's Kennecott mine just collapsed. So add that to the mix, and we know that Barrick has no rightful claim to Pascua-Lama, and now no gold will probably ever come out of Pascua-Lama for the foreseeable future. And I just want to play this clip from Andy Hoffman, because people need to understand how serious this has gotten.
I just wrote a piece called The Financial Holy Grail Revisited. And the first piece, which was the financial grail of the monetary world, is that, physics over our real money and everything else is not. The second one, the piece that I just wrote, is saying the difference between the paper PM investments and the real stuff is people buy the real stuff when the price goes down and they sell the paper stuff when it goes down. And so, they've discouraged people in the biggest way. I mean, heck, you look at those closed-end bullion funds like CEF and the Sprott Fund, they are all trading at big discounts right now, as I expected that they would. I wrote about that 2 or 3 weeks ago. And as for mining stocks, this is, they are literally have fallen to or pretty close to the 2008 lows. And I think that the mining industry is permanently destroyed.
Now, I just want to interrupt him for a second and hit home that he's been saying this forever. As long as I've known Andy Hoffman, he's been saying you can't trust the paper market. You can't trust the mining stocks. There are a few people I've talked to that know more about the miners than Andy Hoffman as a former analyst. He's just spot on here, and he goes on to remind us that because of what they've done in the paper market, the cartel, they are absolutely destroying future supply.
I believe 3/4 of all the world's mining companies will be bankrupt within 6 to 12 months, and the big companies can't compete anymore because right now at these prices we're below the cost of production, let alone when you have big problems like at the Kennecott mine. People just don't understand how big this mine is. You can see it from outer space. It's the biggest copper mine in the world. It produces 16% of U.S. silver and 7% of U.S. gold. And let's face it, if you look at the pictures of that and think about the environmental ramifications, I don't think that thing will ever produce again. and let alone the Pascualama project, which was the biggest oncoming gold-silver project, which looks like it'll be tied up in, let's call it, probate for years and years. So there's no supply out there coming, and there's no supply in the retail world right now. And obviously something very big is going on behind the scenes that, will reveal itself very soon.
Yeah, so there's something very, very big going on behind the scenes. Any of us paying attention know that. And it's not even so much behind the scenes as we've been documenting in this broadcast, Rory. Now, here's one from Silver Doctor saying, odds of COMEX default increasing exponentially. Now, why is that? Well, open interest in the COMEX long gold contracts has increased during this paper raid. It hasn't decreased like the cartel hoped for. That was their plan, right? And the exchange will not have the ability to deliver on the open interest if this continues. So will they just settle in cash? Will they default? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that it will be a combination of default and paying everybody off on the front end, that paying their buddies off on the front end, and then defaulting on all the little people. As far as, just regular people like you and I. I mean, anybody that's playing in the COMEX is an idiot, first of all. I mean, and I don't think that they'll ever pay anybody off in gold or silver ever again. I mean, according to Harvey Organ, they've been paying people off in cash for a long time. I mean, and there's very few deliveries of actual metal, except for the 1.96 million ounces from JP Morgan's vault. I mean, other than that, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense, except for what Andy Hoffman said, that there is something going on in the background that we don't know what it is, but it is looming like a very, very dark cloud. And like you say over and over, if you're paying attention and you can't see it, I don't know. I can't help you. I mean, but it just stinks to the high heavens. It's so scary to me right now because there's the runs globally on gold and silver it just blows my mind. It really does.
Do you have that article handy from Economic Collapse blog? It was titled 10 Signs the Takedown of Paper Gold Has Unleashed an Unprecedented Global Run of Physical Gold and Silver. Do you have that handy?
Yep.
Can you take us through that? Because, people need to understand that this is happening. What we have been talking about on SGT Report and on my YouTube channel, what Zero Hedge, what Silver Doctors, what Intel Hub, what everyone, KWN, has been talking about for the better part of 5 years or more now, is that this day would come, and it's here. And it's unraveling so slowly and behind the scenes, but it's changing in a way that's so quickly day to day, but not often reported on, that it's hard to follow. So just real quickly, if you can, before break, take us through those 10 signs that the takedown of paper gold has unleashed an unprecedented global run on physical gold and silver.
Okay, and this is Michael Snyder over at the Economics Collapse blog, published on April the 18th. And the number one, according to Zero Hedge, the U.S. Mint set a new all-time record for the number of gold ounces sold on Wednesday, 63,500 ounces, or 2 tons in 1 day.
Wow.
And
that's physical, folks. That's physical.
That's real. That's the real deal.
That's while the cartel was selling paper into the market hand over fist. Okay, continue.
Hand over fist. Precious metals, number 2. Precious metals dealers all over the United States are having a really hard time keeping up with the demand right now, and you can read that just about anywhere in the alternative news. Okay, everybody's reporting on that.
Well, yeah, let me jump in. Miles Franklin and others have reported that, they can't even get and sell the junk stuff. They can't get the junk silver. Brother John did a pretty good expose on junk silver from APMEX and other places that are selling it. In some cases, $6 over spot. This is unprecedented. This is the divergence of physical from paper that we've been talking about for so long.
Yep. Number 3, individual dealers all over the country are confirming that we are seeing a ferocious appetite for precious metals at the moment. And that's coming from JM Bullion. And number 4, Large international banks are also experiencing tremendous demand for physical gold and silver by customers. And that's relating back to the Keith Barron interview that we've been discussing. Number 5, the demand for physical gold and silver is heating up over in Europe as well. Now, I just heard that the Royal Mint in the UK sold 3 times their normal gold this year over last year, year over year.
Right.
3 times.
Right.
And we still got a few days left, few reporting days left. We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, well, and piggyback on that.
Lies.
Piggyback on that with the Shanghai Exchange.
Number 6, on the other side of the globe, demand for precious metals is skyrocketing as well. I mean, and that's he's citing Australia, and the volume of business that we're putting through is way in excess of double what we did last week. And remember, this was on the 18th. This was about 9 days ago. So, and if you've listened to the King World News weekly metals update, Bill Haynes this morning said that this past week it slowed down a little, but still far and above anything that he's used to. Number 7, Reuters is reporting that customers are waiting for up to 3 hours to buy gold in Japan, which is, I mean, I would do it. According to a Chinese article quoted by The Blaze, there's a mad rush to buy gold in China right now. People have to rush to buy gold. Gold bullion out of stock yesterday. Investors yesterday to spend as much as 600 million yuan to buy 20 kilos of gold bars. Yeah. That's getting after it.
That's getting after it. Well, let me just jump in and just remind people how rare physical precious metals are, right? And how large Asia is. I mean, there's over 1 billion Chinese folks. There's 1.2 billion Chinese folks. And those that are well-heeled in China probably, amount of the number of well-heeled Americans. So if you want to say out of 1.2 billion Chinese, a couple 100 million, maybe 100 million, maybe 50 million of them have income and some wealth built up because that's where the boom has been for the last 20 years. These people are now awake. These people now want the physical. Well, guess what? There's no more supply. Silver is a byproduct of copper mining. The Kennecott mine just collapsed, right? They were only pulling out 600 to 700 million ounces of physical silver annually anyway. That's less than 1 ounce of silver for every Chinese person. That leaves nothing for you, nothing for me, nothing for those in Europe, nothing for those in Japan. Nobody in Russia gets any. That's what we're talking about, people. This is such a valuable commodity. It's truly precious. And if you don't have it, you're going to wish you had it because the cartel's done an excellent job of making the average American sheeple think that there's no value in holding these metals and they're too volatile. But guess what? The truth of the matter is the rest of the world is waking up. And some Americans are waking up too, as we can see by the incredible demand for physical gold eagles and physical silver eagles from our very own U.S. Mint. It's just extraordinary. It's Saturday, April 27th, and before we went to break, we were talking about the unprecedented demand for physical precious metals globally, and this is what Andy Hoffman has to say about it, folks. If you don't have your bullion, you're never going to get it.
This end game, as we keep overusing that term, is starting now where you have an actual break of the physical and paper markets. We saw it to an extent in 2008 and again in 2011, one on the downside and one on the upside. But in those cases, those were self-correcting mechanisms. The cartel had the powers that be had the money and kind of kicked the can down the road a bit more, but they're not going to have the ability to do that now. And I fear that this is the final breaking of the market where if you don't have your bullion, you're never going to get it.
If you don't have your bullion, you're never going to get it. And that really segues nicely for us to this final article from Miles Franklin's Bill Holter, who wrote, and I quote, "Force majeure was the end game all along. The COMEX will probably default next week." Now, Jeff Nielsen doesn't agree with that. Jeff Nielsen thinks they will just settle in cash forever. But Bill Holter writes, when that occurs, either you own the metal or you don't. Your ability to protect yourself right now, for all intents and purposes, is being eliminated. Now, those are powerful words, aren't they, Rory? your ability to protect yourself is being eliminated
completely. And on several fronts, I want to backtrack just slightly, but it ties in real nicely to this. MindWeb produced an article, or it was on the 25th, and it showed the per ounce cost to bring gold out of the ground in South Africa. There's 5 companies. Harmony Gold, $1,480.
$1,480
per ounce to bring it out of the ground.
Yeah, and that's probably using slave labor. Okay, continue. We've got 3 minutes and 58 seconds.
Anglo Gold Ashanti, the South African operation, $15.55 per ounce to get it out of the ground. Zambian Gold, $17.59 per ounce to get it out of the ground. DRD Gold, $13.22 per ounce. Pan African Resources, $11.76. So out of those 5 mining companies, and Africa is by far the largest gold producer in the world, out of those 5 companies, only 2 of them are currently are making money. All the other ones, and Sibian Gold, they're like way in the red at $17.59 an ounce right now. So how much longer are they going to be able to operate like that? Not very much longer. So as far as going back to the COMEX, where's the COMEX going to get gold if nobody can bring it out, can dig it up out of the ground? They're not going to get it.
Well, I don't know. What can you say other than be left a little speechless? Because if you want to take a look at the big picture, right, you want to talk about the New World Order and the globalist cabal, which took over our government, which is hell-bent on destroying the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and our monetary system. One could argue that this is all by design. But on the other hand, it sure seems like they've let this spin out of control, because this latest paper crash, which was meant to destroy confidence and make people flee from the gold and silver markets, did exactly the opposite. And now people around the world are waking up. And as I've often said, once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put him back in. Once you know the truth, you can't unknow it. And I just have to think that anybody listening to us who's been following our work knows the truth. They can't unknow it. And we see it time and time again in the comments of the items we post, even during these daily raids, Rory, in which the comments are all like, thank God for the deal. I'm buying more today cheaper. And that's the mentality. That's the beautiful thing about truth. Those who know the truth can unknow it, and those who want to fight this criminal cartel and this criminal government by speaking out and speaking honorably against them are doing a great job, because we will not be dissuaded. We will not be dissuaded from truth. We will not be dissuaded from the constitutional principles that the founders gave us. We will not be dissuaded from our natural rights, and we will not be dissuaded from honest money. We will protect ourselves by taking as much physical off the market as we're able to do.
And that speaks to that right there, that last bit. We will take as much physical off the market as possible. That's how we speak the loudest, in my opinion, because for every single dollar that is exchanged for gold or silver is one less dollar that goes to a bombing or to a drone or to some criminal politician or some criminal bankster. That is one less dollar that they can get their hands on. And that's the real crux of the problem for these guys, is that they know that and we know that.
Here's the bottom line. The bottom line is that physical precious metals will be your protection. They are taking your right to protect yourself away, they think. But those of us in the know still have time. And there's 10 seconds left in this broadcast to say, go and get some physical precious metals while you still can, because these criminals want to leave you penniless, homeless, and desperate. And we won't let them do it. Thanks for listening.